I never thought a cup of coffee could change everything. But that Tuesday morning in late October, sitting across from a woman I thought I knew, my whole understanding of love got turned completely upside down. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work as a project manager for a mid-size construction firm downtown. Nothing glamorous. I wake up, I go to work, I come home, I cook something simple, and I go to bed. That was my life for a long time. Steady, predictable, safe. I had been divorced for 2 years when I met Rebecca. My marriage to my ex-wife, Courtney, ended quietly. No big fight, no dramatic finale. We just slowly became strangers who shared a lease and a dog named Biscuit. When she left, she took the dog. I kept the apartment and a lot of empty evenings. My buddy James kept telling me to get back out there. He'd say, "Daniel, man, you're 32, not 60. Go meet someone." So one evening in July, I agreed to go to this charity fundraiser his company was hosting downtown. I didn't want to be there. I stood near the back with a glass of sparkling water, counting how long I had to stay before it seemed polite to leave. That's when I saw Rebecca. She was laughing at something a friend said, and there was something so genuinely unguarded about it. Not a practiced laugh, not performance, just real. She had long brown hair and was wearing this soft pink dress, and she looked completely comfortable in her own skin in a way that I always admired in people because I never quite felt that way myself. James nudged me. "Go talk to her." I almost didn't, but something pulled me across the room. We talked for 2 hours that night. Rebecca Collins, 30 years old. She worked as a nurse at Atrium Health, originally from Asheville. She loved hiking, terrible reality TV, and making her grandmother's biscuit recipe on Sunday mornings. She was warm and funny and thoughtful, and by the end of the night, I knew I wanted to see her again. We dated through the rest of summer and into fall. It was easy in a way I hadn't experienced before. She made me laugh. She listened when I talked about work stress or the lingering guilt I still felt about my marriage ending. I was careful with her, maybe too careful, because there was something I kept holding back. I had this idea, this quiet belief I'd been carrying around since my divorce, that what I needed was a clean slate. Someone without complications. Someone who hadn't been through the messy bruising stuff that I had. I told myself that my failed marriage had left me with too much baggage, and I didn't want to add someone else's baggage on top of mine. I wanted something fresh, uncomplicated. I never said it out loud. Until that Tuesday morning in October, we were at this small cafe near her apartment called Briar Common. White tables, good espresso, the kind of place where conversations feel important somehow. We'd been together almost 4 months, and things were getting more serious. The night before, she'd mentioned something casually, something about a relationship she'd been in before, someone she'd dated for 3 years in her mid-20s. She said it matter-of-factly, the way adults do when they're being honest with someone they trust. But something about it sat wrong with me overnight. I didn't sleep well. So there we were, coffees between us, a little succulent plant on the table, and I said it. I don't even know exactly how it came out, but the words were something like, "Rebecca, I've been thinking a lot, and I think what I need is someone without a past, someone who hasn't been through all of this stuff, someone I don't have to share with all the history." The moment it left my mouth, I felt it land wrong. She didn't get angry. That almost would have been easier. She just looked at me for a long moment. Quiet, still, like she was deciding something. Then she said, "Daniel, everyone has a past. The question is what they did with it." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She leaned forward slightly, her hands wrapped around her mug, and she kept her voice calm. "You want someone without a past. Do you know what that actually means? It means someone who hasn't loved anyone and lost them. Someone who hasn't made mistakes and grown from them. Someone who hasn't been hurt and chosen to heal anyway." She paused. "That person doesn't exist, and honestly, if they did, they'd have nothing real to offer you." I just sat there. "My past," she continued, "is where I learned what I'm worth. It's where I figured out what I actually need from a relationship, and what I refuse to accept. The guy I told you about last night, the 3-year relationship, it ended because he wanted me to be smaller than I was, quieter, less opinionated, and I spent a year after that asking myself what was wrong with me." She shook her head slowly. "Nothing was wrong with me, but I needed to go through that to know it. I felt something shift in my chest, uncomfortable, real. You went through a divorce, she said. That hurt you, I know it did. But that experience is also why you're more careful now. More honest. It's why you actually communicate instead of shutting down. I've noticed that about you, Daniel. You're not the man who gave up on his marriage. You're the man who learned from it. She looked at me steadily. That's your past working for you.
Not against you. I looked down at my coffee. She wasn't done. Her voice got a little quieter, more personal. I'm a nurse. You know what I see every day? People at their worst moments, scared, broken, lost, and the ones who come back strongest are never the ones who had easy lives.
They're the ones who went through something and didn't let it define them forever. She exhaled. I don't want a man without a past, Daniel. I want a man who's honest about his. The cafe hummed around us. Someone laughed at another table. A barista called out a name. And I just sat there, completely undone by a woman who could have gotten up and walked out, but instead chose to tell me the truth. I thought about Courtney, about the slow drift of that marriage, about how I'd spent 2 years blaming myself, then blaming her, then just feeling vaguely ashamed of the whole thing. I'd carried that shame like it proved something was fundamentally wrong with me. And somewhere along the way, I'd decided that the solution was to find someone untouched by all of it. Someone I didn't have to be honest with about the hard stuff, because there wouldn't be any hard stuff. What a cowardly way to think about love. I'm sorry, I said finally. My voice came out rougher than I expected. That was a stupid thing to say, a really stupid thing. She didn't rush to forgive me or tell me it was fine. She just nodded once, slowly, like she appreciated that I actually meant it. Why did you even say it? She asked. I thought about it honestly, maybe for the first time. Because I'm scared, I said, of it going wrong again, of being that guy who couldn't make it work. And I think I convinced myself that if I found someone with no complications, no history, then there'd be nothing to go wrong. I looked up at her. But that's not love. That's just trying to avoid pain. She was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, she said, yeah, it is. We sat with that for a while. The coffees went a little cold. The cafe kept humming. Eventually, Rebecca reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Not dramatically, just gently. The way you do when you're saying, I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere, she said. But I need you to actually be here too. Not some version of you that's still living in what went wrong 3 years ago. I turned my hand over and held hers. I'm here, I told her. And I meant it in a way I hadn't meant much of anything in a long time. We left the cafe an hour later. Walked around the block twice, just talking, the October air cool and clean. She told me more about her grandmother, who raised her after her parents split up. A fierce, funny woman from Asheville, who apparently made the best apple butter in the county. I told her things about my childhood that I hadn't told anyone, small embarrassing tender things that I'd kept tucked away. That was the day I stopped running from my own story. It's been 8 months since that morning at Briar Common. Rebecca and I are still together. Better actually, more honest, more real. There are still hard conversations, still moments where old fears flare up, and I have to remind myself that this is different, that I'm different. But I think about what she said to me that day more than she probably realizes. Everyone has a past. The question is what they did with it. I spent 2 years thinking my past was a wound I had to hide. Rebecca helped me see it was actually a map. It shows where I've been, what I've survived, what I finally understand. And if I'd found that clean slate I thought I wanted, I would have missed all of it. I would have missed her.